The last thing I want is for you to think that you can't grow fruit trees because you're afraid of pruning them or you don't think you have enough room. And that's why I planted my backyard orchard. Today we're going to be summer pruning, which a lot of people will tell you you can't do or you shouldn't do, but you can and you should do it. So we're gonna try to get through like 2 or 3 different types of trees today because some are a little bit easier to prune than others. Some are more aggressive growers than others. And we're gonna start here with this peach tree. So the reason that we do summer pruning is to control the size of the fruit trees. In the winter, we're really pruning for shape. We're trying to remove anything that looks dead or diseased, which we will do in the summer too. But if you think about it, a tree stores all of its energy in its roots in the winter. In the summer, when it sends out all this nice new leafy growth, that's when all of the energy pretty much is being stored in the outer part of the tree. So if we can cut back that leafy growth in the summer, it's going to restrict the size of the tree the next season when it's growing because it just won't have as much energy to send back from those leaves down into the roots for winter. So this tree in particular is probably the most out of control. And if you go back to our spring pruning video, it's kind of crazy how much bigger this tree has gotten. I think the tree was probably like down here when we pruned it this March, I believe it was. And so we've got a good 2.5, 3 feet of growth in some spots. And you will see there's a lot of damage here. We get Japanese beetles and ants that come through and they take a bunch of munches out of all these leaves. And that's okay, it's going to happen. Really with stone fruits in general, but especially peach trees, you're gonna see that they are very aggressive growers. So I'm going to be the most aggressive in pruning back this tree of all the examples that I will show you. Because if you look at some of the other ones that I'll show you, they're like a quarter of the size of this one. Even though I planted them all at the same time, all the trees were the same age when they were planted, something about stone fruit, they're just the most prolific plants ever, which is kind of annoying because this means it's going to take us the longest to get through pruning this. As a general rule of thumb, best practice, we want to make sure that our pruners are cleaned in between trees. You will see some disease on some of these trees right now because I did not have a chance to spray them down with the copper fungicide I had planned to spray them with because I was kind of busy being sick in the first trimester. So there is some disease on these, which means I want to be extra careful about wiping the pruners down. I just use these little alcohol swabs. People always ask me how I sanitize my pruners, and that's just the easiest way. I mean, I guess you could dunk them in something, but I feel like that's way messier and more annoying. So I just use that. I've already wiped them down for this tree. So I'm gonna start kind of thinking less about the shape and more just about the overall volume because this thing is just out of control. Of course, we wanna remove anything that's like really disoriented first. So we've got some branches here that are sticking straight up. I never want you to be so afraid of pruning that you're just like frozen with indecision. Because the truth is there's just no one right way to prune a tree. There's a million different choices that you can be making as you're pruning. So I'm trying to give myself kind of like a baseline, right? Like I see that there's some shorter pieces coming up in the center here and it is forming more of a vase shape, but this tree, I want it to grow more like a shrub anyway. So we're less worried about like airflow at this point. Like that's something I can think about more in the winter when I'm really concerned about the overall shape of the canopy. Right now I'm just like, oh my God, please calm down. Like this tree is just out of control. It's really, really big. So I'm gonna try to just get that height down as much as possible while still leaving about 50% of that overall canopy. Now this method isn't what you would do if you were growing a full-size fruit tree, but because we're doing this backyard orchard culture method, which you can see a lot more about in my other videos in this same playlist, we're making very different decisions than we would if the fruit tree was going to be growing full size. I'm trying to keep this really, really manageable, and that means we have to be a lot more aggressive. So I'm less thinking about specific cuts and more just thinking, okay, airflow, control the size, get it down to a manageable size, and then we'll reassess once we've got like the bulk of all this new growth off. Like if you look at these branches up close, you see all this green, and we already cut this one halfway. All this green down to here, this is new since March. So that means we left like 2 feet here And we cut off at least a foot of this already. There's just so much on these stone fruits. So this is kind of the vase structure thing I was talking about, where you want to make sure that the plant has this open center, because that's where all that airflow is going to come through. So we can cut out things like this because we don't want them crisscrossing. That's kind of disoriented. And we don't want things in the center at all. I am trying to cut on at least a slight angle. More of an angle is better because water won't collect on the tip while it's healing, which can cause rot issues. Like, look at all this branching it had already done. So it will continue to do that. It will branch out from the point at which we cut it, although it really is a good idea to go right above leaves here, not an inch above the leaves like I just did it. I'm really just trying to speed through this because I know that this tree is so enormous and there's a lot that we have to get through here. You also want to make sure, when you're pruning in the summer especially, not to be pruning around like a heat wave, because the plant's already going to be stressed at that point, and we're stressing it out more by cutting it back. So we want to cut back no more than like 50% of the overall canopy. I know it looks really dramatic, but of what I've cut off here, I haven't cut back more than like a third of the new growth, and that's really what I'm looking at. So we've got it down pretty much to where the whole overall tree is almost one uniform size. Now, this is a living thing. It's never going to be 100% uniform, and that's okay. But since we've kind of removed the bulk of it, now I'm just going to go through really quick, look for any of the 3Ds. And this time of year, you're going to see more disorientation. So things that are like crisscrossing here, or small suckers that we just want to cut off. And actually, now that I'm down here, I'm looking at this tag and it's like grown into the tree. It's choking the tree. So that's something I need to deal with right away, because that is very bad for the trunk of the tree for that to be happening. It grew so rapidly that I didn't even have a chance to notice that that was going on. You get a lot more suckers when you prune in the winter, especially because it has so much extra energy to send out and it doesn't have anywhere to go because we've cut it back so hard in the spring. This I don't love, but again, I'm less worried about the shape on this one right now because that's something we can address more next March. I am going to try to get any of these really upward facing ones out of here, so that we continue to form that more like bowl shape. And now is a good time to really step back, because once I'm like in the tree like this, it gets a lot harder for me to kind of see what I've already done. And when we step back, it gives us just a better overall picture of things. I know right now it looks a little bit scary. It feels a little bit scary to be doing this, but I've been doing it long enough now that I'm confident that it's going to be okay. So we've got kind of the bulk of it down. We've got the shape of it here. And now I'm just thinking, okay, is there anything dead, diseased, dying, disoriented? So here I've got a few that are showing some discoloration, and they're kind of growing in a weird way where I feel like they're impeding the airflow of these main branches. So I am going to cut off these smaller pieces here. And we want to get a little bit closer on that so that it doesn't rot. And this one too, it's kind of doing something funky. Okay, I think that's all we're going to do on this peach tree for now. I may come back out here and just kind of reassess it with fresh eyes in a couple of days to make sure there's nothing that I missed, but we can definitely kind of be taking notes for the spring of things that we want to do differently in terms of shape. Right now, again, we're just trying to control for the size. And look, you can see so much more of the orchard now because that one was so huge. It was taking up so much room. So this Granny Smith is showing some signs of a really weird disease. It's got like leaf curl on it. I'm not really sure what's happening here. This is definitely not my area of expertise. I learned a lot about pruning, and I feel like that's the thing when you're trying something new that has so many different skill sets within it, like growing your own fruit trees. It's really important to deep dive on individual topics, and that's what I did with the pruning, but now I really need to focus in on doing it for the diseases. So obviously there's a lot less actual growth on this tree. It's a normal amount for the type of tree that it is, being a Granny Smith, but it's a lot less to cut, except that most of it has the disease on it. And so again, I still need to be pretty darn aggressive with it. I'm not unhappy with the overall shape. it's something that we can continue to correct in the cooler months. There's a couple crisscrossy branches down here, especially where we have this one and this one kind of connecting almost, and we don't want that. So we have to make a decision here, and my decision is to keep more of this one. So as far as shaping goes, I am going to take that one back down to the nub here, and I can go pretty close. We've got a crisscross happening here, and both of these are going toward the center of the trunk anyway, so we want to take those out completely. And now that we've kind of dealt with any of the disoriented branches, we can just bring it back down to size a little bit. And we want to kind of be dealing with these curly leaves and try to get past any of those. So I'm going to go right above a leaf node right here. And this again will be kind of the main height that I'm aiming for with the rest of the branches, unless I see some really dramatic disease lower down on one of them. You can see a lot more signs of the disease spreading on this branch, so I want to make sure I'm really getting good margins on that and going well below where I see that disease spreading. We'll do the same here. Some of this is disease, but some of it I think is more just those Japanese beetles again. And they always go to town on the fruit trees. There are a couple individual leaves lower down that seem to have this spotting on them, and I'm just gonna remove those as I go. I don't know if that's gonna help or not, but they just don't look good, so I'm gonna get them out of here while I'm here. And these are a lot of like suckers. Like, see this kind of soft one? This isn't like a good branch. It's just taking water from the tree, and they come off really easily. So overall, I'm okay with this half of the tree. Something kind of weird's happening over here. But right now, I'm just gonna focus on cutting it back a bit. Oop. This is the one downside of growing the trees really close together. They look closer together on camera, I think, than they even actually are. They're about 4, some are 5 feet apart, but even at that distance, there's a lot more opportunity for the disease to transfer from one plant to another, which is another really important reason that we do this. And as far as timing goes, the latest I would do this is the beginning of August, which is what I'm doing now, and I'm not super thrilled about it. I did not want to wait this long. Ideally, you would do it more around the summer solstice, because by now the plant is already starting to send that energy back down from the leaves into the root system. If you waited any longer, there would be almost no point to doing this, because all that energy would already be stored back in the roots by mid to late August, and you wouldn't get any of the benefits of kind of being able to restrict the size the way that we're going to here. Okay, and just to show you that you should not let your fear inhibit your pruning decisions, I'm gonna show you the worst tree in here. This tree is completely riddled with some kind of disease, and not only that, the shape is just terrible. I truly have no idea what's going on here. This is the Rainier cherry. It did not send out any flowers this year, which I'm not super surprised because of how young it is. So when things are this bad, I usually just tell myself there's no wrong decision, because at this point, the tree just needs help. It's crying out for help, and we just have to try to do something, anything, to bring it back to life. These branches are all kind of growing up and in close together. So I don't even really know how to fully correct it at this point, but I do know that the tree is still small enough that there's hope, that we can make an aggressive cut that is like a heading cut and not really think like the tree's never gonna bounce back from it. And a lot of the times that's the case. Like, we're just kind of doing something, waiting a year and seeing how the tree reacted to what we did. Okay, so this is the height we're going for, but I'm also thinking, like, what can we just get out of here? These ones look the healthiest, so I don't want to cut them any more than I have to. I'm just gonna wake them up. But here you can see there's a significant amount of damage occurring, and it ends right about there. So we're gonna go just a little bit lower above a leaf node. And we're looking for outward facing buds always, but oftentimes we don't really have that much of a choice when there's so much disease and the shape is totally wrong. We're just kind of like doing what we can. So here you can see there's 1, 2, 3 branches, and these two are crossing each other. So we have to make a decision here, and I'm trying to decide because this one has the least disease and the one over here seems to have the most and is growing in the weirdest direction. I'm gonna actually cut this back really hard and come way down here to right where it joins. And this one is also looking really, really bad. So I'm gonna kind of give it a chance to reset. I'm not gonna cut it all the way back because I wanna see if it will wake back up and put out new growth next year or not. But I'm thinking probably I will end up cutting it back to here at some point in the next year or two, especially with all this crispy disease that's happening here. So based on just the green growth here, it looks like this was all our new growth for this year, and I really don't want to cut it back because we try to leave about 1/3 of that, at least, if not 2/3 preferably. But again, in this specific case where the tree is just really struggling, I want to improve airflow because if it is fungal, that will help a lot. And I just don't have a choice because if I leave it on, it's just going to spread further and further. So I am looking here for an outward facing bud. If I cut right above here, that will encourage branching outward in this direction. So this has 2 stems of new growth that are looking fairly okay in terms of disease. So we'll just get rid of this one to bring it back down to height and wake this piece up. But yeah, this is looking pretty gnarly here. And you can see there's a lot of ants. They sense the weakness. We want to try to cut that out as much as possible. This tree isn't even like cutting the way the others are. It's almost like my blade is dull, but it's not. I don't know if that's just because it's a cherry tree and that's what cherry trees do. I really have no idea. I'm going to do my little step back and I'm going to try to assess things. Like, I know it looks terrible, but it looks a lot better to me than it did. I just don't know how much more I can do here until we can get it sprayed and treated for this disease. There's one piece right here that's really bad. This like really brown crispy bit. I'm just gonna cut that back. Again, it's not ideal, but I'm a lot happier with it than I was before I started. And I think that sometimes that's the best that we can do. Trees are living things, and the thing with pruning is we do it for our benefit, not for theirs. Nothing that we can do to this tree, short of completely decapitating it, is going to be catastrophic to the point where it will never grow back, especially when they're still this small. Once the trunks get big enough that you would need like a chainsaw or a hacksaw to get through them, then you have a problem. If you're cutting through big, thick things like that, it can cause a lot more long-term damage to the health of the tree. But where we're making these more aggressive cuts in backyard orchard culture, we're keeping the trees smaller to begin with, so it's a little bit more forgiving for a longer period of time. This is only the second full summer for these trees. They have a long way to go, and right now they're getting to the point where they're established, but they're not perfect in the eyes of like humans. They may think they're doing just fine, but we have our own ideas of what they need to do in order to get the best production out of them and to be able to move around this space freely. So I'm thinking about it in terms of that. But at the end of the day, it's a human intervention. It's not a necessary one, and we're just kind of doing the best that we can. If you want to learn more about the specific trees that I planted, how I planted them, the process of backyard orchard culture in general, check out the full backyard orchard culture playlist that I have on my channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.